Good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to Phil's Corner Live. As we begin, I want to say welcome to anyone tuning in through Twitter or X. If you are doing so, if this is your first time checking out Phil's Corner, then welcome to you. And I'm just quickly setting up my this seems to have bugged out again, my the view counter for Twitter. I need to sort that out, but let me just grab that now for us. Where are we? We're looking for, It should be here, shouldn't it? Doesn't seem to be working. I'm not going to worry too much if it is completely bugged out, but whilst I'm here, I'll try and figure it out. But welcome also to our YouTube viewers, and good to be back, guys. I had a few days away with family, so we missed. Sadly, we missed the eBay stream on Tuesday, but very excited that next week, starting from this coming Monday, we'll be doing our new Monday morning stream. Still not quite sure of a name. I'll think of something, but we'll be doing a Monday morning roundup of the latest shirt news. Hopefully kind of a bit shorter, maybe something like 10 minutes or so. Just your regular dose of the stories you need to know in the football shirt world, with my takes and my thoughts on them. That'll be an additional show to the eBay stream on Tuesday evenings, and this show, the Hot Wall, on Thursday afternoon. So another stream of content, another opportunity to check out the channel, to have some content coming from the channel. There we go. We found it. There's our views for Twitter. Good stuff. But yeah, guys, hopefully that'll be a good new addition, and of course I hope to get your feedback on that and see how that goes. But that'll be Monday morning, 8 AM UK time, British summer time. So look forward to that, and of course again, we'll be continuing on Tuesdays and Thursdays as well. As we just about get to the Hot Wall, I will say as well, do please subscribe if you're new to the channel, if this is your first time, if you're watching this live, or if you're watching this on catch up. Please consider subscribing to the channel. It really would be appreciated, and of course it doesn't cost you anything, so do consider that. And if you are subscribed, if you've been enjoying these videos, if you've been enjoying the streams, and you'd like to support me even further, to support me as an independent content creator, then I have a Patreon, and there's lots of cool stuff with that as part of your support. If you do support me through Patreon, indeed, thank you to my current patrons for supporting me, for allowing me to work full time as a freelancer. And the best thing, amongst many other things, with Patreon is that you get one of the shirts that I've designed with Icarus, the fantastic brand Icarus. You get that as part of your support, along with a range of other benefits. So do check that out if that's of interest. That will be in the description. It should be in there now. If it isn't, I'll need to rectify that, but it will be there later. And indeed, if it isn't, then that's something I've done wrong on my end. But anyway, that's there too. Good to see Daredevil. Friday Junior. Yes, it is Friday Junior. One of the traditions of Phil's call on a Thursday. Good to be here on this Friday Junior. It's a Tuesday, Thursday. I've been away so long, I don't know what day it is. Today, guys, we are talking. Sorry if my mic's a bit hot, which is a classic problem I've still not been able to rectify. We're going to be talking about Adidas. We're going to be talking about Adidas and their third kits. And if we just transition now, I'll just bring us up. Let's talk about the trefoil. Now, before we get the shirts on the board, a quick recap of where we're at, the state of play, if you like. This is all the shirts we've ranked so far in 2024. Now, of course, there are many shirts still to add. There were a few weeks we were away. We had a few. There's been a few shirts which haven't been added to the site that we're pulling from, but essentially this is the majority, or at least a good chunk of the shirts released in this calendar year. Some from last season, most of them from this coming season, or indeed for leagues that play, that start in January, February, etc. Those are included here. All sorts of kits. The majority of them land in somewhere in this third tier. This is what we call our candle tier. But my favourite shirts will be on the right of this tier list. This is our volcano tier, the elusive volcano tier. Not many shirts get in here, but there have been a few, and indeed we will hope to add to that as we go through the year. Daredevil said Adidas killed it with this collection. The Arsenal is Sully from Monsters Inc. Yeah, I had a friend literally sent me a comparison picture, which did make me laugh. I think it almost makes me like the kit more. But yeah, that's our tier list. And to help us, we have been using the fantastic site Football Shirt Culture. Shout out to them. This stream is not sponsored by them in any way, but they do a good job of keeping up to date with releases and providing all the pictures, and they have minimal ads as well, which is much appreciated. But today we're going to focus particularly on these 5 kits. Now, these have been out for a while. They were released, I believe, was it the end of last week or the start of this week? I forget now. As I was aware, I didn't quite catch up with them as they were being released. But we're going to focus on this collection, talk a lot about it, talk about things I like, and rank each individual shirt on the hot wall. Good to see you, Matthew. Says, hi Phil, hope you're well, mate. I am, thank you, mate. I had a few days away with family, and good to be back. Talking shirts, talking football kits. Hope you're well too, mate. And Matthew says, how the Bayern and Juve trefoil shirts arriving tomorrow. Good stuff. Yeah, many people. It was interesting. I saw more than one person say that they wanted to pick up at least a couple of these kits. And I think what's quite fascinating is that a collection like this, which is a much more kind of top-down approach by a brand. And by that I mean an approach where a brand is designing a selection of kits which feel like they've taken a lot of their creative direction from the brand's side rather than the club side. These aren't necessarily kits which would be directly linked to a club. Obviously they fit with each of the clubs, but particularly the Juventus shirt here, you could see this for a number of different teams with a few minor tweaks. And to be honest, I think it's the same for each of the kits. They feel a lot more closely aligned with what Adidas are trying to do, and that's not a bad thing at all. Of course, we've seen this approach from brands before. We've seen approaches where brands have decided to design a collection that feels like a kind of capsule from a fashion brand, rather than a series of disparate kits which are third kits and just happen to be from the same brand. Nike have done this quite a lot in the past, to varying degrees of success. Adidas the same, and it's cool to see this. I think in terms of the treatment that Adidas's elite teams are getting, the teams that get all their attention, well, they're getting everything that Adidas could possibly think of, the very best in terms of their design approach. Does it mean all the kits are hits? I don't think so, but let's go through them individually. We'll start from the top. We'll start from Juventus, work our way down. They are some pretty sweet kits, but I don't think they're all hits. Let's get into it. Daredevil was saying, saw a comparison of the replica versus player issue, and the embossed details aren't too pronounced in the replica. Yeah, that's a real shame. I think it's fair to say that that hasn't got better in recent years. We've seen a lot of kind of differences between the replica and player spec, which perhaps weren't as pronounced in previous years. So I think the overall takeaway is that replicas, despite continuing to rise in price, are offering less and less, I think, which produces a difficult situation for fans particularly, and also collectors. Matty says, just a Juve third round tomorrow, but would love to buy into it. Incredible collection. I think it is a really strong collection. I think Adidas nailed the marketing side of things by really leading into getting all the legends to wear the kits for the promo shots. Some of the the imagery is really strong. I think it's quite interesting actually, because these kits, despite it being broadly retro in terms of using the trefoil, we've got a couple of collars in here and things which feel a little bit more retro. In many ways it isn't a retro collection, and I think that's one of the strengths of this. These aren't just remakes of old kits, which can still land well, but these feel like kits which are suitable, or at least kind of brought forward for this kind of modern, very fashion conscious football shirt consumers. And I use that word deliberately because these aren't just fans, these are people who collect kits. But anyway, Juventus, let's talk about this. Now this has got a lot of love, and I think in terms of the kind of the timelessness of this kit, if we could say that, this has a lot of elements which I think really do lean into, particularly the fashion element. I think more than any of the other kits perhaps. This feels almost like a lifestyle shirt, but the very best of a lifestyle shirt. And by that I mean it possesses details which feel like a higher end lifestyle item. Now, some people say, "Hey Duncan, good to see you, mate." Some people use that almost as a kind of derogatory term for football shirts. Oh, it looks like a lifestyle kit. But I think that is a positive. When you see, for example, this pattern, this detailing in the fabric, this is absolutely top tier. This wonderful kind of almost looks like a kind of links or chains. I'm not sure exactly what the pattern is supposed to represent, but this pattern, this jacquard through the body, is really strong. And I'm really intrigued as well by this crest. And this is really fascinating to see. The famous, I don't know what they call it, the horse, the stallion, whatever it is, which Juve have used. I believe that's on the flag of Turin as well, if I just confirm that for us. If I could type. Yeah. So is it a bull? Sorry, I said a horse. Well, I don't actually know. No, it's the Juventus logo, isn't it? Let's go to Wikipedia. It is a horse. Am I just crazy on that? A stallion, or is it not? Maybe it is a bull. Any fans will be able to confirm. I'm going to leave that to chat to help me. And indeed, guys, if you are new, you're watching this on Twitter, you can join in the chat. If you click on the stream, you can join in directly on Twitter, or you can go to YouTube, as some of the guys have done, and jump in the chat. So help me. I think that is supposed to be a horse, right? If it's not, it's a bull. But either way, I'm unsure. I should know this. I don't really know a lot about Juventus. But anyway, I'm intrigued by this style. I think it's interesting to see this approach, and it's quite a kind of sort of distorted look. I kind of like it. It's a fresh take. It's a new take, and I think this shirt doesn't particularly feel again like a football shirt. It feels like a fashion item, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, the trefoil lends itself to that, and of course we've been used to seeing the trefoil on lifestyle pieces. I think that's potentially some of my thinking there. But the collar looks fantastic in terms of again the different layers we've got here with different elements. So a really strong looking set of details there. The cuffs of course match it well, and from what I gather, that pattern goes throughout the back, which it should do. It's a subliminal pattern of course, but that's good to see. Probably my least favorite detail is the back neck, and even that's fine, but I don't know if this is just this image here. You see how the U is kind of stretched here? That to me, I don't know if that's deliberate or just the way the shirt is kind of sat on the model there. And I'm not the biggest fan of just kind of simple word marks or word based details. But I think this is very, very strong. It definitely feels a particular niche, a particular mould. And I think of all the kits, of all the Adidas third kits, this is the most... I think it's the most successful. I don't necessarily think it's the best or my favourite shirt, but I think this feels like the most kind of suitable or suited to this collection, which is leaning heavily again on kind of fashion aesthetic and really kind of using the trefoil to kind of help tell that story. It's a zebra. Of course it's a zebra, Sam. How did I not know? Sorry, I'm saying of course to me, not of course to you. Of course, thank you. Of course it's a zebra. There was me calling it a horse, calling it a bull. I promise I'm usually a bit more accurate, although long-term viewers will know when we're live here. This is what you get for a live show. Sometimes dubious facts, dubious information. But nonetheless, let's rank this shirt. Now, I think again, when it comes to the details and particularly that fabric and that jacquard pattern, I am all in. I think I really do like that. And this is a very wearable, collectible shirt. It's not necessarily got some of the features which could have pushed it over the top for me. I think we're not quite a volcano tier, but we're very high up in the flames tier, and that's not a low rating at all. I think we're talking something in this range. It compares to me a bit like the Primera shirt we looked at before, the Bangu shirt I've got behind me. It's that sort of territory, and I really do like it a lot. So that is the Juventus shirt. Dennis, do you think Adidas under the trefoil would have been better? That would have been interesting to see, but I think it makes sense given how Adidas have moved with their new 3-stripe logo. I think it makes sense that we're seeing we're seeing the just the trefoil. So I can understand that. That's Juventus, but of course we've got more shirts. Let's talk about Manchester United. Now, I was very excited when I saw the leaks of this kit because I think, broadly speaking, this style of shirt is one of my favourites. Again, long-time viewers will know I love horizontal bands. Not necessarily a hooped kit, but I love designs like this which incorporate horizontal stripes, hoops, bands of colour, whatever we're going to call them. And I think just as a base style, it can work really well. I think I was thinking about this the other day. I'm really into flags. I've always had a bit of a affinity, love for flags. I think maybe that's part of it. But I think this to me is absolutely superb. It ticks a lot of the boxes I like to see. I love the base colour. If we can talk about that. Now, I haven't kind of had confirmation of this, but it looks to me to be ever so slightly off-white. Now, I'm hoping that's not just... Sometimes you see kind of promo shots and what have you, and they've edited them to look different. I think it is ever so slightly off-white. And if it is, I particularly like that, because I think that subtle decision of not just having a pure white kit, but a slightly off-colour kit, white would be great. Now, again, it says it's off-white, so I'm going to go with that. And to me, that is, again, a great start, but complemented with these bands of colour. Now, is it the flag of Yemen? I think this resembles. I think if I got that right. Obviously, that's not what this is referring to. But this, again, the tricolour of the red, the white, or the off-white and the black looks fantastic. Love how we've got the devil of the crest there as a kind of alternate crest star sitting in there with the trefoil. The sponsor is what it is. There were sponsors. It takes up a lot of real estate, but compared to some sponsors, Snapdragon, we can kind of live with that. One thing I forgot to mention actually, and I believe this is the case for all the third kits, but actually I'm just going to go back to Juve. I believe they all have the taping, the proper taping returning, which is great to see. It's not very obvious on the Juventus shirt, but here you can see, and this is here with this. You see that kind of red underside? Well, that's because we have actual sleeve taping, which is a huge upgrade. And it's funny because we actually saw this with some of the World Cup kits, the Adidas World Cup kits from 2022. They sort of went away from that, and even for some of the new home and away kits, we didn't see that. But I'm so happy to see it return for these circuits, and that alone means that all these kits are already operating at a slightly higher level than some of the other Adidas kits we've seen this year. So really happy to see that. Honestly, there are very few things I would look to change about this kit. We've seen this collar style for other Adidas shirts, so that's nothing too special there. I'd probably like to see something more on the back. I can understand why you don't have the bands of colour there, but it does feel quite plain. I do like that detail though, and I think this detail is much stronger than the Juventus detail on the back. So I think this is actually my favourite of the collection. I'm going to say that now. I do like the other kits, but personally, and I'm saying this as of course a Liverpool fan, so I have to kind of hand in my fan card there to say this. I think it's probably just the one that speaks to me most, or the things I like most about kits. It's playing on the things which I like about football kits. I think this is a Volcano shirt, guys. Again, I think the Juventus shirt, I can understand why many people say that's the best one. I think that's the most kind of, that it's a funny thing to say, but I think that's the most kind of quote unquote successful of the collection, or at least the one that feels the most kind of closely aligned with what Adidas I think are trying to do. But ultimately, I think this is one of the best kits of the year, and I think it's probably my well. Let's have a look. Have we got any other Premier League kits here? We've got Sunderland from the slightly lower in the English leagues, but I think this is, unless I'm going blind, that's our only Premier League shirt, and we don't often see Premier League shirts this high. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm going to stick it around here, but I am a big fan of this shirt, and I think it deserves a spot in the top tier. So that's Manchester United. Let's catch up with the comments. Good to see some people jumping in. Thanks, guys, for your contributions. These shows are always much more fun. with your involvement. So we have Matthew says, tough question for you, Phil. Which collection is better, this trefoil one or the 2019 Nike Futura collection? That's a great question, Matthew. That is the perfect example of what I was talking before about top-down design. And this is something which, in fact, I'm going to... Once again, I've done this before. I'm going to make a note. I need to talk about this in a tweet, shall we say. So I'm just going to make a note, and I don't want you to steal my notes. So... But honestly, Matthew, that is an astute observation, and I think, again, when we've seen, like, you know, a lot of brands have done this before, but I think that Nike Futura collection is particularly relevant because it very much went down the same path that Adidas are going here by bringing back the old logo, by having this kind of pseudo retro. It's not obviously retro, but it's borrowing retro elements. I think I probably lean towards Nike, and we weren't doing the hot wall back then, so you know we can't compare the rankings. But I think I would have said Nike, which maybe is kind of my personal bias. I'm a bit more of a Nike kind of fanboy compared to Adidas, but I think again we could talk a lot about that, and I think that's a really good comparison. If you guys don't remember the kits, go and check those out because I think it's a similar approach from a brand. And I think, you know, in many ways they were very successful, both collections. Arsenal JPR, great collection indeed. Reminds me of the Nike. Look at that. Sorry, I'm literally reading your comments. A bit slow here, but JPR exactly with the same thoughts. And guys, you are spot on. And again, I think it's really interesting to reflect on that, to compare. Obviously, Adidas are quite a few years later. I don't think, you know, this, not that they've copied Nike, but I think it is interesting to see brands continue to do this. And I think, you know, in terms of third kits, they're exactly the kind of place you want to see. Excuse me. You want to see brands doing this because I think there is more license with third kits. And we've got some comments about Sao Paulo. Duncan said just looks to us like a Sao Paulo shirt. See, for me, I don't think that's a bad thing because I like that aesthetic. But yes, I can see that. And indeed, Daredevil's talking about Sao Paulo as well. So yeah, I really like the United shirt. But of course, we've got a couple more. We've got the Real Madrid third kit. Now, it's interesting because when I look at this one, I think this one, this shirt, this third shirt, is several steps below the Juve shirt in my estimations, despite being very, very similar in terms of the kind of base construction, in terms of the approach of having a subliminal pattern which is achieved through the fabric of the shirt with this really strong jacquard. I like the execution, but the style of it to me, or at least the kind of end result, is several steps down. Again, from that pattern perspective, to me that Juve pattern is a lot more effective, and I think this is personal taste more than anything. When I look at the, you know, these kind of the word based details, it's a little bit tacky for me. I wonder if those the script here, the wording was a bit smaller, if I like it a bit more. Ultimately it's still a very, very attractive football shirt when you compare it. Again, it compares well to the Juve shirt. It does similar things. It has the same kind of collar style, if not the same collar, very similar collar. I think it is the same. You've got the taping, which though less obvious again than the United shirt, it's still there. And crucially, this pattern's on the back. So I'm really happy to see this. I think in terms of kind of the techniques that Adidas are using, this is again, I'm throwing the book, throwing everything at this. I do prefer this backnet detail to that Juve one we talked about before, but probably a little bit below the United one. I just think there's just the end aesthetic isn't as strong, but it still works well. And then I think it comes down to colours. What do you think about these colours here? I'm probably lower on this than the colourway, the palette of the Manchester United shirt, but I do think this is still quite strong. It's not doing as much for me as maybe the Juventus shirt. I think I'd probably lean towards Juve, but again, I think this is still very strong, but it's not quite hitting as high a note or notes as the others that we've just seen. It's still, I think, a Flamesteer shirt. largely because of, I think, the quality and the execution of the design. But from a taste perspective and from my kind of personal bias, and this is what this list is about, it's my personal rankings, of course, but I try to be objective as well. That's kind of part of my, my role and my job, and I wouldn't be, I think, again, if you've been watching Phil's Corner for a while, you know that I try to take a look from a expert opinion, from an expert take, but of course it's personal taste more than anything else. I think this is a Flames tier shirt, and I'd probably still put it kind of middle of the Flames tier. It's probably close to my least favourite. I think it'll be between that and Arsenal. But I would definitely still, I probably should have picked a better picture. Let's just get rid of Jude here. What do we want? Yeah, let's go. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I just want something slightly portrait. We'll go Vinny. Yeah, I'm a fan of, again, this kit, even though it's not my favourite of the collection. Still Flames tier. Like, I think this is, again, it's the way that pattern is in the fabric of the shirt. I cannot overstate that, how important that is compared to a simple print or sublimated pattern, which would look a lot less strong in my opinion. I think we can go as high as here for Real Madrid's third. Catching up on the comments again. Aidan, good to see Aidan, says, hey Phil, did I miss the United third kit chat? Got to be right up there, up the top. You just did, Aidan. You were literally minutes away from it. But I can't remember if you can rewind the stream live. If you can't, it will be there just before you tuned in, mate. And yeah, I have a lot of good things to say. It did make my Volcano tier. And Daniel says the colour just looks bland. I think that's why it's my least favourite. You think Real Madrid would be the darlings of adidas, but I think this shirt is the worst of the collection. I think I'd probably agree, Duncan. It's between that and Arsenal for me. But I think, one thing I would say is that the Real Madrid home shirt is very good. I've put that all the way up here, and I'm sticking by that. In fact, I'd probably even nudge it slightly higher, having seen a few pictures on the pitch and Mbappe wearing it the other night. I think this is, again, that pattern, that houndstooth pattern is absolutely brilliant. I think, yeah, there's an argument that this actually could be much higher. I think it's one of the best Real Madrid home shirts in a long, long time. So, they can't have it all, can they? Colour looks like videos of the 1940s. Yeah, I can see that there. And Douglas says, I thought grey kits were not popular after what happened to Manchester United all those years ago. Yeah, it's funny. Anytime you see a grey or a silver kit, or a kit that's broadly grey, that's the first thing people often think about. I think we've not seen a large number of grey and silver kits, but clearly there's a bit of an appetite there, and it speaks to, I think, again, the continual influence of the fashion world and this kind of emphasis on wearability, shirts which combine well with lots of different types of clothing. Grey is a good colour choice. It's the same reason black is often so popular, and typically often more popular than kind of whites. You can kind of get away, like off-whites again can kind of help, but typically the darker shirts and those kind of greys or tones that are close to black do have that wearability element. Yeah, I would say. And Matt says also feels like it doesn't belong to this collection. You can envision the rest of the collection being created in the 90s. Yeah, I think you're definitely on the right track there, Matt. Or at the very least, that aligns with some of my thoughts. So we'll come on to that after we talk about Bayern Munich shirt. Now, we've got some of the same great features we've already talked about. This pattern in the body is absolutely brilliant. It's very hard to see, but this is a bit like what we talked about with the Juventus shirt. Just a textbook example. I think this is probably my favourite of the patterns we've seen, of the subliminal patterns we've seen. I think this is absolutely brilliant. This as a design isn't necessarily particularly daring. I think they've played it safe, but we shouldn't discount or dismiss the end result. I love the combination of colours here. When you've got that slightly more, more beige than the United shirt. You could probably still classify it as off-white, but I'd say this is more of a cream shirt as a base. And we've also got a retro version of the Bayern crest, which is a really nice touch. It's a subtle thing, but unless I'm mistaken, that is an old version of the crest. It's there you go, from kind of the 70s, late 70s. Really like the two-tone here with the red and the maroon. Obviously, Bayern over the years have often had either of these colours, but to have both, you don't always see that, but I think it works well. And of course, just that little trim in those colours looks great, but it's all about that pattern. I really like this. Of course, we're seeing the same kind of diamonds that we see, or this kind of diamond shape that we see in the crest. I think this is really well executed. It goes on the sleeves, of course, and on the back, and I think it's honestly 10 out of 10 from that perspective. The back neck pattern, a bit like the Real Madrid one, not my favourite. I think that could be better. That's a small thing I'd probably want to change, but just look at it here, guys. It looks fantastic. This is the kind of thing where obviously we're reviewing the authentic or the player spec shirt, and it's a shame that I believe all, if not most, of the replicas don't have all these kind of juicy details that we're talking about, but that's a separate conversation. Man, I'm yawning. I'm not used to being on stream. I have a few days off and that's it. I think this is great, and I think, again, both from a pattern and a colour perspective, this is particularly good. One thing which I didn't say actually on the previous discussions, I'm not a big fan of the one button collars, but I kind of don't mind it. I mean, this is the thing. It's been a long kind of trope of the channel that I dislike these kind of one buttons. I'd rather have another button. I probably still would, but I'm kind of ignoring that given how good the rest of the kit is. So I think this is close to the United shirt. I think the question for me now as I rank it is this in the Volcano tier? It's kind of a bit like the LAFC kit we talked about. I think we can sneak this one in. It's not going to be quite as high as United, but it's not far behind. And there are some similarities, of course, with these kits. I think this is a real triumph from Adidas, and it's really good to see. Really good to see Adidas, going all out with these kits, going all out with these third kits. This isn't just a random retro kit. The way the patterns are in the fabric of the shirt, the really kind of considered colour palettes, which I think add a lot. I'm going to put this at the bottom of the Volcano tier, but that is, again, the second Volcano tier shirt of this collection. And even though the Real Madrid one was trailing somewhat, not a bad set of kits, and indeed Juventus as well, not far behind. Best kit for me, says Daredevil. The only reason why is because the crest is the original colours are not monochrome. Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? Actually, it's a really good point to mention. So many kits and crests now are monochrome. We shouldn't overstate. I keep using those words incorrectly. We shouldn't ignore that fact, because it is, I think, a real strength of the kit to have that little pop of blue there. And indeed the red, which ties in with the red of the three stripes and the collar and cuffs. So really, really good to see that. And I agree, it works much better in full colour, which is something which often kits do not. Like the Real Madrid kit doesn't have, and that is weaker for that fact. And indeed, excuse me, this is killing me. I should have had a nap before I came on stream. in the middle of the day, the old man that I am. Duncan says this Bayern one is top. Daredevil agrees. And guys, I'd love to hear your rankings. Aidan as well has jumped in with his personal 5. Let me know, what's your order? So for me, and we've got Arsenal still to come, which we'll rank, but I've got currently United, followed by Bayern, followed by Juve, followed by Real Madrid. Love to hear your rankings. Aidan's gone for him United, Juve, Bayern, Madrid, Arsenal. JPS's Bayern is the one I'd be interested in picking up in Heat Ready. I think, that's the thing. I definitely like to pick up one of these, or if I was to pick up one of these, I would want it to have it in the player spec, simply because of the way those patterns are working in the material. But we come now to Arsenal, and it'd be good to kind of finish the collection before too long. Now, the interesting thing about Arsenal kit is that, like the United shirt, it doesn't have a bespoke pattern in the body, a bespoke jacquard. And with the United shirt, that wasn't a problem for me, because I think the style of the shirt was, spoke to me, resonated with me. When I look now at the Arsenal kit, it does feel a bit like it's out on a limb. Now, from a colour perspective, this is certainly the most kind of progressive, or certainly the most daring of the set. It doesn't have a particularly kind of vintage look. Now, on the flip side, you could argue that, of course, particularly through the 90s, we saw a lot of more daring colourways. So in that sense, it's kind of vaguely retro adjacent. But I would certainly say, of all the kits, this one feels, from a colour perspective, the most like a typical modern third shirt. It's got previously referred to, and some people have said this looks like Sully from Monsters Inc. It definitely has that kind of colourway, doesn't it, with the turquoises and the lilacs, the purples. It's an attractive colourway in isolation, I think, but when put on the shirt, the pattern feels quite a throwaway. It feels, and I've said this about a few kits this year, and it's been a classic criticism, I think, of mine previously, that this feels like the pattern is so abstract that it's perhaps wandered a bit too far from what could have been much more interesting. I'm not saying it would have to be too literal or too obvious a pattern, but I don't. This one, it feels like it's completely devoid of any connection. And sometimes, and maybe it's because I've not read the story or what have you, but I'm failing to really see much of a connection or story to get me excited. Now, some kits don't need that. Sometimes the pattern is so strong, a colourway is so strong, a finished kit is so strong that you kind of don't need that story. But I've not fallen in love with this one. I haven't really, again, gravitated to this too much. We don't have a back neck detail, I believe, which is a notable omission. And though we have the pattern on the back, which is a big tick, and I'm so glad to see that, and across the collection that is the case. It's not my favourite, and I think ultimately this one feels a bit lost. It feels like, honestly, this could have been a third kit from any of the last few years that just happens to have the trefoil in it. What would connect it or improve it, I think, or at least bring it more in line with this collection, I think ultimately it does come down to the overall aesthetic. Not necessarily just the colours, but certainly the colours is the first thing you'd think of. But I think more than anything, these other kits here, they just have a little bit more, I think, cohesion, or at least they have a little bit more of what looks like considered thinking. This one feels like a little bit more, throwaway, a bit more generic, if I could say that. So, all those words to say that I think this one is in danger of being my least favourite. But where does it compare to the Real Madrid shirt? I think I would honestly put this one below, but not by much. And I would definitely say this is close to the Flames tier. But this is the thing with the hot wall. We've got to now really compare, because sometimes, I think, okay, I quite like the shirt, but then when you look at it, I'm then playing the game of, would I take this shirt over, for example, the Valencia shirt? I probably wouldn't. I think I prefer Valencia's shirt, even though that one was missing a kind of some killer details. I like the colours on that one. Then we drop down. How does it compare to something like the Penarol shirt, FC Paoli? I think I'd probably just take it below, but we're talking, I think it still has to land quite high in the Canal tier. But it is going to be my least favourite of the set. You know what? I think we can put it here on the border. We have a few shirts like the St. Pauli one there. I think I'd put it there. Not the worst ranking by any means, but it is my least favourite of the Adidas third shirts. So there we go, guys. Adidas's trefoil third shirts. I think, broadly speaking, a great collection. It's a really effective set, and it's a similar story to what we saw with the MLS Archive collection. Quite a different collection, that one, but again, Adidas taking this kind of more top-down approach, grouping these teams together and kind of saying this is what we're going for, this is the aesthetic, the style, the story we want to tell. And I think they told that story quite well as a whole, with the Manchester United and Bayern Munich kits being my favourite of the set. And indeed, JPR, after saying that Bayern would be the one who wants to pick up in heat ready, maybe Madrid or Juve in air ready if they ever go on sale. I would hope so. I think they probably would, certainly with these teams and, with Adidas's kind of distribution and what have you. I'd expect these to be available deep into the season. Mind you, the cups from the 90s says Daredevil. So we've got a few more shirts to rank, guys, and indeed that was the focus of today, but I'm going to pick out a few, and we did this before. I think in order to kind of keep these videos as tight as possible, well, in fact, before I do that, I said that, but actually let's just have a look. How many shirts do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I think we can catch up with where we were last week. There hasn't been too many shirts, and in fact, if we just check, we were down to Manchester City, weren't we? So yeah, let's just go for it. Let's just go from the top. I was going to say I'll pick out a few shirts, but actually there's not been a crazy amount of updates on football show culture. We can catch up to City if we're quick enough. So let's go. And of course, as we rank these shirts, guys, I'd love to get your thoughts. I'll try and condense some of my thoughts, not have quite as many comments for each kit, but you know what I'm like. I will probably still talk too much about them. I'm going to crack open a window, actually. Because it's pretty warm here in the UK this week. Not as warm as the start of the week, although I was down south and it was like being abroad. But good to be back in the north. Slightly cooler. Duncan says, isn't one of the South America teams in the adidas third kit collection? I didn't see that, but unless I missed that, Duncan, they certainly have introduced or included some teams from outside Europe before in some of their kind of premium collections, but I didn't recall seeing that. Unless, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. Feels like some of the others, not vintage, nor is it steeped in the story. Yeah, I'd agree. In relation to Arsenal, of course, they didn't there. And Norwich away third looks good. Well, we will come to that very soon. So Fulham, a bit like what we talked about with the Arsenal kit, this kind of pattern, this camo pattern, feels quite a throwaway. I'm not sure if this is bespoke or one of the catalogue patterns. I think it is just a catalogue pattern, but I may be wrong on that. Perhaps this is actually a bespoke camo, but I mean, it looks like some of the other catalogue ones we've seen. I think the Adidas template is good, and I actually don't mind seeing the way this pattern goes onto both panels, whilst keeping the these kind of flares in the base colour. It's not my favourite shade of purple, I will say that. I think this kind of slightly brighter shade is hard to get right. I think we're talking candle tier here, but kind of mid candle tier. Probably somewhere like here feels good for Fulham. Not too bad for their third kit. It does the job, but we have seen much better. Now we come to Sunderland, of course. Much talk of this one today, and a lot of dislike from what I saw. I actually saw this kit quite a few weeks ago when I filmed with Sunderland, and of course you can check out the videos I did for the home and away kit, and the third one will be coming up soon. I think this one sits really well in the collection of kits when you've got the home and the away, which have a lot of obvious retro influences, and they kind of play into that. This is very daring of Sunderland. From a pattern perspective, this is pretty crazy. But it is essentially a repeat pattern of the mining wheels of the current crest. And when you see that, you kind of think, okay, there's something there. I think it's quite a clever shirt in terms of the way you have kind of chevrons in the negative space. It's not the primary aspect of the design, but you kind of see that there. Probably the least strong thing about this kit is that you do unfortunately lose the Hummel and the Hummel logo and the old crest, and it's great to see the old script crest here. That makes it 3 different crests across 3 kits for Sunderland. But the best sponsor does definitely draw your eye because of the way the sponsor, the shape of the sponsor and the design of the logo. I think there would definitely be, it would be good to see different versions of this, of the applications, which perhaps had either a stroke or an outline to kind of bring it out. But I do think this is a really strong look in terms of doing something different. And, you know, of course, yeah, you'll hear more of my thoughts in the video, which will be coming out, I'm sure, in the coming weeks. But I'm a fan. A lot of people, again, particularly some of the fans, were not particularly happy with it. But I think this is a really effective third shirt, which does something very different to the home and away. Now, having said all those things, you know, I rank both the home and away in the Volcano tier. I'm going to rank this one a bit lower, and I think this one for me is more kind of lower end of the Flames tier, higher end of the Candle tier. I think I would probably land in the Candle tier, but high up, a bit like the Arsenal kit we talked about. As much as I do like where this one sits, I think from a colour perspective, this isn't particularly impactful, and ultimately, I do think there are some issues with, again, with the visibility of those logos. So lots of good touches from Hummel and Sunderland, but it will be the lowest of the three. But that's not the worst place. I mean, considering how high up I have the home and away, as a collection, there are a few better, I would say. And good to see Hummel really, again, going all out for the club, producing some really strong bespoke designs, and that is key, I think, for any club outside of the top divisions. If you're going to get bespoke kits, you're already on a good footing. More briefly, we come to Cape Town City. I don't think this design is quite as strong as it could have been in terms of the kind of construction of the shirt. I don't really like that collar, and that sort of lets it down for me. I'm not a big fan of these kind of styles. So there's a nice pattern in the body, and it's, you know, kind of reversed or darker rather on the sleeves. But I'm not feeling the construction of the kit as much. That being said, I think the shirt is very strong, again, from a pattern perspective, and it looks to be possibly continuing on the back. I cannot tell for sure. Overall, though, the kit, again, is one of a number. Like, it continues a tradition of strong shirts that Umber have made for Cape Town City. If you've not seen Cape Town City shirts before, I would encourage you to check out the back catalogue of the last kind of 5-6 years. We've seen better. I think probably for this one to go higher up in my estimations, I'd like to see those sleeves be even darker. I think the contrast could be greater, and I think that pattern as well could have elements of that brought out in another colour. Maybe it is in a yellow, but just to kind of add a bit more dynamism to that pattern. I think it's a very good base to work from, but I think there was more to come from Umber here. That's my take though, and I think ultimately this is still a strong shirt. That's not the best. We can go with that. Yeah, so where does this one rank on the tier list? I think we're looking somewhere, again, kind of higher end of the Canon tier, which is where a few shirts are placed today. I think we can look at this one. If we just resize it quickly now, I think we're talking a bit below the Arsenal shirt. Yeah, I don't mind it kind of in this area. There's a gap here. Let's fill that. Well, let's go here, and that's Cape Town City. But let's continue, guys. We've got many more shirts to rank. We come to Benfica. Now, these I think have been out for a little while actually, but they've only just been added to Football Shirt Culture. Starting with the away. Looks like we've got a bit of a constellation theme here. Quite a fun design, and I think it's interesting when you consider, excuse me as I keep muting my mic, when you consider that many constellation designs typically favour blue or have blue as a colour as part of the palette. Obviously Benfica playing in red, or certainly wanted to avoid blue for obvious reasons. Quite nice to see, again, a constellation design that takes a different approach, or simply because of the team has a different approach. But ultimately, I think the theme has a lot of potential. The execution could be much better. You know, when we look at this constellation, the aesthetic of this constellation design it feels quite weak to me. It reminds me of sticking in Portugal, when we were talking about the Portugal away kit, which many people loved. I really disliked. I disliked the aesthetic of the pattern. Now, I don't think this is as bad as that particular shirt, but I do think we're trending towards the bottom end of the tier list, despite it being a great idea. Now, I think it's still quite a broadly quite a nice look, but I'm sticking in the counter tier, guys. I'm not going any higher than that, and that's a shame. What's the reason why it's constellations instead of? Good question. If you have a quick read of the press release, decorated with constellations reference to stars aligning for the foundation of the club. Ridiculous reason, in all honesty, based on that. Complete marketing jargon. But that's the modern shirt game for everyone. That's what you get. Pretty silly reason. Very random indeed. So I think sadly it's kind of in this region of materials for me. I do like the idea, but I think we could have seen a lot more in terms of this theme, this idea. I think it really does come down to me to the aesthetics of that constellation. It looks a bit weak. It does go on the back, which is important. I think let's bump it outside. Let's go around here. We're still talking counters here, but much more could have been achieved there, I think, with the kit. Benfica always seem to go half-hearted. Adidas efforts. Just says Duncan. Yeah, we've seen a lot like that have fallen into that category. I think there have actually been some strong kits. I quite liked their kind of was it the third or the away from last year? Where the kind of Olympics colours and the stripes. That one had something about it. We come to their third kit now. Again, this one got a lot of hate from what I saw online, and a very unusual combination of colours here. It definitely has the feel of a kind of noughties training top, or more accurately, I think a noughties goalkeeper kit. And the balance does feel off. I don't mind. I think as having this kind of luminous colour with the orange, there's an interesting combination here. But it's fair to say the end result does feel pretty poor. And I wonder what it would look like if you switched the lighter grey and the black. I don't know if that would necessarily be better. And obviously you've already got a black away shirt, so that wouldn't really work in tandem. But it's fair to say that this one, especially without any kind of meaningful or noticeable pattern or bespoke elements, it's a memorable colour scheme. It's certainly quite a distinctive colour scheme, but not necessarily for the right reasons. I don't dislike this one as much as others. I do think there is more to those colours than perhaps some people have given it credit for. But then maybe that's just more my personal taste than anything else. I do see why there is the dislike. I'd probably put it though around the away kit. I'll go just below, but again, I'm not kind of slamming this one in the ice cube tier. I do kind of like what we're seeing in terms of some of the ideas, but the end result isn't great. Even though again, it's a very unusual, quite a unique colour scheme, which is rare to see in the football world. Yeah, I want to be Real Madrid kit from 2016. I can see that definitely. Daredevil, there's definitely that vibe, and obviously with the Emirates and the Adidas, that definitely plays into it. But we come to Brondby, and their away kit. Now this is much stronger, and though again, I'm very biased towards Hummel. I really like what we've seen from the Brondby home and away kits. Now, I'm not sure if we've actually ranked the home. If we have, I don't remember where we placed it. We might have. That might be in the backlog. One of the ones we need to rank. Spoiler alert, I think that's very good. I think this is also good. Now, it's not quite kind of in the top tier for me, but I really like what Hummel and Brondby have done. Given the anniversary as well, so it's 60 years. Sorry, more than, is it 60? Yeah, it's 60. I've done my maths right. 1964. So there's an anniversary feel here. You know, it's got kind of broadly some kind of nostalgic elements, but it's not just an old school kit. Obviously, having the pattern here in the darker stripes is quite interesting, and we can see, I believe, iconic kind of players and moments. Now, this isn't my favourite style. You know, I've talked about this before. I'm not the biggest fan of kind of these more kind of literal patterns. You see this a lot with like stadium graphics, don't you? This isn't my favourite, but the execution is great on the idea, and I like the tones of blue. I like the subtle kind of pinstripe trim you have across the kit. So this one is, despite again not being my favourite style of pattern in those darker areas, I think it comes together really well on the kit. It does land in the flame steer for me. And again, Brondby as a team, Brondby, I believe it's pronounced Brondby, or at least that's what I remember it being called when I was in Denmark. But yeah, I believe something like Brondby, but their kits are fantastic this year, and the away, I think, is quite a sneakily good kit. Not as good as some of the other kits they've had in recent years, but still very, very strong. I think it definitely deserves a place in this kind of area. If we go here, that feels good. And yeah, good stuff from Hummel. As we continue, guys, I want to say thank you for tuning in for the first time, particularly if you're tuning in through Twitter. Let me know what you think of the stream. Do jump in if you would like to with the chat, and you can do that on Twitter and or YouTube. Simply jump in like the other guys have. You can do that on Twitter by clicking on the stream card, and then it will bring up the stream with hopefully a window on the right where you can chat, and on YouTube it should again be fairly prominent on the live stream. Right, we come to Norwich, and there's actually a couple of really sweet kits here from the Football League. If we start with Norwich and their third kit, this one again ticks a lot of boxes in terms of this colour. We talked about this before with the United kit and even the Bayern kit. These kind of off-white shades, they're becoming more and more popular, and I think for good reason. I think this is, you know, definitely something which keeps working, continues to work. Love this combination when you've got this combined with the dark green and the little flashes of yellow. In terms of a collar and cuff style, though it is very cliche, I can't help but like it. It is simple, the simple crew neck, but you know, it's kind of a tried and tested approach at this point. The simple sponsor is welcome, and indeed the long sleeves are welcome. We're not particularly focusing on that, of course, or at least we don't tend to talk about that with our rankings, but we should mention the fact that you've got long sleeves with the cuff details. So this is fantastic. I think in terms of a you know, an off-white shirt of a number we've seen, this is not far off the top of the list. It's not quite getting there, but I think we're looking at a very high flame steer shirt here. You know, the crest, which I believe was recently redesigned, or maybe I'm misremembering, but certainly as a design as well. Does work in monochrome, or certainly I don't mind it there. If nothing else, because we get to see a bit more of that green, because I think that dark green on the base is fantastic. I'm a fan. I think it's, you know, again, one of the better shirts in the championship. I think this deserves to be right up here, and that's good work from Homer, a brand who have, you know, been quite good for Norwich. And Aidan said, "It's so nice. Not the regional badge sponsor helps the kit massively too." I think it does. I would agree. And yeah, really, really sweet third shirt. But the goodness continues, and we now have the Hull away shirt. Hull City's away shirt from Kappa. This style, this kind of this style of pattern, feels like it would fit in actually with a lot of the kits we've seen from Umbro this year. We've seen indeed Umbro do some great work in the Football League. the likes of Cambridge and Wimbledon and some of these kits. I really do like this style of pattern though, this kind of paint splatter design. It's something which we've seen from other kits, and I feel like, you know, kind of even 6-7 years ago maybe, we saw kind of a few kits of this style, but I do like this one, and I think, you know, again, some of these details are great. Backnet detail, very strong. Kappa, you know, they're bringing all the goodness in terms of some of their fabric work, and I quite like the visible top stitching. Just that, again, which a typical kind of Kappa thing, but it's something which they've often done on their kits over the years. It's not exclusive to them by any means, but from a colour perspective, this is wonderful. I really like, you know, approaches like this. We have a simple base, if not a completely clean base, and then allow the sleeves to kind of carry the weight of the design. And in that sense, it compares well to something like the Sunderland shirt, which again, similar kind of approach, and it's something which I really like in kits. This is a potential Volcano tier candidate, to be honest. If we just look at the kit again, you know, you've got the Kappa kind of not taping, but it's kind of the pseudo taping or the kind of faux taping. I think this is gonna go into the Volcano tier. Why not? I feel like when I look at this, I like it, you know, more than the Bayern shirt, which is in the Volcano tier. So, you know, that's not a bit of an unfortunate thumbnail there. We're losing the element of the of the design, but nonetheless, I'm a big fan. And you know what? I think we can find a better picture, can't we? We need to get those sleeves in there, don't we? Let's just grab. Let's just have a look. So if we grab this, we can get. Oh, then we've got the badge. See, this is the problem. Trying to find the best, the optimal angle. If we let's just widen it. Sorry, I'm wasting time here. There we go. We'll capture a little bit of the of the sleeve pattern. Hang on a minute. What's going on here? Oh, I've cut it from the wrong side, guys. That's a bit of a mistake. Right, there we go. Let's go that. I've just got my layers mixed up completely. Bish, bash, and then there we go. A little bit of sleeve pattern. Apologies for the delay there. That'll do. How do you feel if the design went down the side of the torso? Because I feel like that definitely needs to be on the shirt more. I would like to see that. I think that probably could improve things. Daredevil. But I don't mind this, and I think, you know, I do like, as I say, this approach generally with kits. I think it can work really well. And yeah, in that sense, I think this has, you know, achieved a lot with this style. I'd probably take it below Sunderland as well, but this is kind of fairly competitive area now, or this kind of growing area of the Volcano tier. But I really like it from Hull, and yeah, good stuff from Kappa. Now, as we continue, I'm going to review. I said I'd catch up with City, but if we just look at these three here, we've got Inter Milan, Newcastle, Ipswich, and West Ham. How many have we got in between? Oh. So I think what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to rank these shirts in between City and the United collection off stream. And again, to keep the kind of stream nice and tight, we're going to finish with Inter Milan, Newcastle, and Ipswich. So let's just round off the stream. Let's do these three kits. We'll start with Inter Milan. Now, it's really hard to look past the collar. You know, much has been said about it, and I don't want to retread old steps, but I hate the collar. I just dislike the collar from Nike, and you know, it's a real shame to see that, of course, rolled out across many teams. The shirt, the base colours, again, it has this kind of, you know, very, very light grey, I believe, or certainly it looks like a grey, a slightly kind of a steely shade. I think from a colour perspective, it reminds me, and I forget which kit this is similar to. If we just take a look at Inter Milan's kit history, we go to old football shares on the site, which I use all the time to get a snapshot of a team's kit history. I guess is it the 2001 away? It's maybe that one. We've seen kind of other grey, a lot of grey goalkeeper kits. So the colours feel somewhat nostalgic, but I don't particularly. There's not too much with the end kit, which I'm excited about. You know, if we look at, for example, the cuffs, I don't know if this is the best style. Now, again, we've just praised lots of kits like the Norwich kit, which have these kind of cuffs. I feel like that could be more tied into the aesthetic of the kit, and even just the cut of the shirt. You know, when you see the stitch in here, I believe it's stitched, or it might be another kind of technique, but this feels, again, like a strange element. It feels a bit like this whole kind of, from a construction perspective, this feels like a few different kits mashed into one, and it's probably largely, honestly, this collar which is throwing me off, and I don't want to just focus on that. Yeah, this one does feel subpar to me, and that's even with, you know, the lovely air dry for ADV spec, but again, because it's not bespoke to the team, it's less of an excitement here. Even though it does look strong, would be interested to see this one on pitch. Sometimes, you know, a colourway like this does actually really kind of land well, and I think it's a bit like in the conversation with Benfica and their third, which I like this one more than that. But it is quite a fresh colourway combination. But sometimes when you see that, you kind of realise why the combination isn't as popular. I think that's the case here. So we're going to land quite central in the Cano tier. Let's go here for Inter. They've largely had it very good with Nike. Not all of their kits have been hits though. What about Newcastle now? Oh, and also guys, I'm very late to reply to a Zhao and Tunisian shirts collector, or at least I think I'm late, because again, I want to apologise because my stream, the chat window on my stream software is not showing the Twitter chat as early, but nonetheless, I'm going to respond on Twitter. We've got, again, Zhao and Tunisian shirts collector. Shout out to you guys. Thank you for tuning in via X, via Twitter. Great to have you along. Please continue to, and I'll try and respond more quickly, unless they were recent messages. But do please jump in with any more questions or comments if you'd like to. So, jumping back to Newcastle. Obviously, this was a kind of slam dunk inclusion, an easy inclusion to make. This is one of the most beloved designs of Newcastle's history, and it's interesting because we've seen other tributes, multiple tributes from Adidas, but also from other brands, and you know, most obviously, or recently I should say, we saw the tribute from Puma in 2018. Now, this is one of my favourite shirts, I think. Of 2018. It was certainly a design which I remember enjoying quite a lot. I think Puma did a good job of paying tribute to the design, but of course it's very similar to this Adidas kit. Now, Adidas, having designed the original kit back in whatever year it was, 1995, I think the question though, and this is a question which we had to ask with the Puma remake, but also with the new kit, is how much of the design, the weight of the design or the impact of the design was because of the colours, and how much of it was also because of the Grandad collar, and indeed, of course, things like the sponsor. And I think when I see this new kit, and I think possibly because we saw that Puma design as well fairly recently, I can't help but feel a little bit underwhelmed. Now, this is despite, again, I think from a colour perspective, I like seeing the return of these colours, and I think actually from a kind of from the perspective of again, Newcastle's kit history, I think this is definitely one of the more memorable designs that they've had. But without that collar, and I would have loved, imagine seeing a return to this crazy collar, or like whether it had the granddad collar or not, just these amount of buttons. You could argue that would be too much, kind of too on the nose, too much of an obvious thing, but I think this could have done more to separate it from that Puma design from 2018. Hey Joe, and hey Digger or Diger, I'm not sure how you say your name. It says all Twitter admire new collection, but I think it's too simple, like standard polo shirts from a tennis shop. So sad. I can definitely see your thinking there, Diger, but I would definitely also kind of counter or say that I think things like the patterns in the body of the shirt really do show the quality of them, even though I do agree that they're not necessarily, certainly some of them aren't particularly strong football shirts necessarily, but I think from a lifestyle perspective they do it well. That would be my take, and obviously I've given my thoughts at the start of the stream. Daniel saying bruised banana for Newcastle. Yeah, it's that kind of thing, isn't it? And we're going to talk about that in a future video actually, about each team's bruised banana. By that I mean kits which were disliked at the time and have grown on for different reasons to be loved. I don't know if this quite fit into that category, because I believe this did have a lot of positive feedback at the time, but I'd have to look at that. I may be wrong on that. I don't think I have done the Oxford kits yet, Joe, actually, and I remember of course yourself being an Oxford fan. I need to, again, there's a lot of a backlog, but I'll probably take requests as well to rank kits. But yeah, jump back to Newcastle. There are good things about this kit. Hoops on the back and the sleeve, big tick. And I think in terms of like, again, you're looking at, with any kind of striped or hoop team, it's the thickness of those stripes or hoops, the frequency of them, and this definitely ticks some boxes, but and it very much similar to the original. Ultimately though, I think this feels like it's the easy route. I would have loved to have seen a bit more of a bespoke approach to maybe like to the stripes and or the collar area, and I think a good detail wouldn't have gone amiss either. Obviously the sleeve sponsor is an eyesore, that is what it is. So we should talk about the crest as well finally as well. Final thoughts on the crest. A full colour crest would have benefited this one, I think. I don't see much reason to have it in monochrome. It's not the worst style, but we've seen better. So, the more I look at this one, the more I think this is a crowd pleaser. But we already saw, for example, with the third kit, which had a kind of a very similar approach, less of an obvious retro nod, but those colours, the Adidas EQT colours, I think I like that one a lot more. This is still good though, and I say a lot more. I'd probably still put this one towards the Flames tier, but I think we could have spread the love out a bit. It's funny because I actually think first of Sunderland, Newcastle's rivals, when I think of this approach where they've had, some really kind of obvious retro nods and crowd pleasing, fan pleasing retro nods, but I think Hummel and Sunderland just simply did it better. And I think those bespoke elements which Hummel simply delivered over Adidas are there. But this is still very good. And I'm not going to be too critical. I would still put this one very much in the Flames tier. I don't think it's out of place as high as here. For me, I actually think the third is my pick of the bunch. But, yeah. Nonetheless, Newcastle Adidas, excited to see where that partnership continues. And we're going to finish, guys, with Ipswich's shirt. Now, Ipswich back in the Premier League, but still with Umber and still working very much with Ed Sheeran, something which has been the case for the last well, quite a few years now. I can't remember when it was that Ed Sheeran first started working with the team, but I believe it was at least 3 years ago. I may be wrong on that. Maybe it was 2. This continues what has been a spate, a run of pink shirts, hot pink shirts which aren't just kind of soft shades of pink, but really kind of bright, I would say quite visually arresting shades of pink. And this one is perhaps one of my least favourites. In fact, this I would say is one of my least favourite kits of the year, period. Seeing, like, to me, Soundwave designs, I don't really like them. Maybe it's because I spent my whole degree looking at Soundwaves as I study music technology, and I was sort of fairly sick of seeing them. Or at least to me, it's a very cheesy approach. And you've got obviously different kind of interpretations of a sound wave, which I believe is what you've got at all different levels here. That almost looks like a cityscape, doesn't it? Honestly, this kind of shade of pink is hard to make work on a kit. And you're thrown in these kind of gradients. It's a very messy design. This to me feels like, well, of course Ed Sheeran probably had very little to do with this kit, but equally, and I don't want to be too critical of him, but it feels like he has actually designed this kit, and I don't particularly hold much. I wouldn't expect much from him in the football shirt department. That's not his thing. He's writing music. But anyway, I digress. I think this is pretty poor. It's not a design which I think sits anywhere close to some of the work we've seen from Umbro. Ultimately, this would be much better suited, I think, as kind of like a one-off special edition shirt, something which is, great, working with Ed Sheeran. He can wear it on tour and what have you, but this is easily one of my least favourite designs. Yes, it's got bespoke elements, but from a colour perspective and just from an execution perspective, I really think we're looking at something genuinely one of my least favourites. I'd probably put it in this kind of area. And it's funny, the Ice Cube tier has been very, very sparse. In fact, I haven't done a count, but it looks like there may be fewer shirts than the Volcano tier, or maybe just one or two more. But there we go. Are the Soundwaves from a particular Ed Sheeran song? That's a good point. A good question, Ian. I wonder. It could be that, or it could be a chant. Often you see this, don't you, with Soundwave designs. So the silhouette is of Framlingham Castle, of Castle on the Hill fame. Soundwaves are cheers at Ipswich Stadium. Yeah. Honestly, I think it's a bit too overcooked, but that's just my take. A rare blemish on what has been a strong day, I would say, as a whole, and that is going to do it for the Hot Wall. So just as a means of recap, a few new Volcano tier entries. One of our best ever days. We had Manchester United's third, Bayern, Hull City getting in on the action. I believe that was all the new Volcano tier entries, but also some really, really high Flames tier shirts. So some great stuff. A bit of everything really, but largely a very positive day. And I am quite high on the Adidas collection as a whole. But guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you to those on X as well as on YouTube. Maybe just a chant of "We Hate Norwich," indeed, Ian. I think it could be that. But at least for today, Norwich have had the last laugh on account of their kits. I certainly much prefer the Norwich third compared to Ipswich. But there we go. That is this episode of The Whole Wall. Thank you guys for tuning in. And don't forget, Monday morning, if you're in the UK, you can wake up early or join me on your commute as I stream from 8 AM, giving you the latest news. We'll recap any stories that come out of the Premier League opening weekend, but more specifically shirt topics. I'll give you the stories you need to know from 8 AM, and of course you can catch up if you're not able to get up at that time, or you're in the US, for example. You can tune in later in the day. And we should be back hopefully for Tuesday eBay and also Thursday Hot Wall, although I need to check my schedule, but I'll keep you posted nonetheless if there are any changes. Thank you for tuning in though, and looking forward to hanging out more. Thank you again to those old faces who have been tuning in today and contributing, but also to the new faces. Really appreciate your time and your company. That'll do it for today though, and as I say, looking forward to hanging out on Monday. Something new, something different, but hopefully the start of a fun new kind of third edition to our weekly streams. And yeah, looking forward to that, guys. I'll catch you then. All the best. Thank you, Daredevil. Premier League is back. That is cool. Enjoy your weekend too, mate. And yeah, well, I won't repeat what you just said there. I do have one or two Chelsea players in my fantasy Premier League team though, so I won't mind from that perspective. They can do well. Hopefully they did too well this season as a Liverpool fan, but nonetheless, thank you, mate. Thank you, guys. See you very soon. All the best.